What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the very first of a series of videos that are designed to help you create a series of your own tools when it comes to doing statistical calculations. Really, as a bonus, what you're also getting with this set of videos here is you're getting some really fluent experience with working with spreadsheets. If you're working in any kind of quantitative field where you're working with data, where you're working with in particular anything that involves money, payroll, human resources, tax, accounting, that sort of stuff. These people are working on spreadsheets all the time, and so being able to say that you have some experience with spreadsheets is a big bonus with any of these things here. So working with Google Sheets is an example of those kinds of spreadsheets. And what's interesting is that as I've gone from Google Sheets to other things like Microsoft Excel, we find that the commands that are used one to the other are fairly similar. And so it's kind of like if you learn Spanish, you know, Portuguese and French and Italian and Latin fairly well as well. The process of going from one to another is not that difficult. So you're getting a lot of stuff here all in one fell swoop. So be excited about this, and be aware here that what we're going to be doing as the first project is we're going to be creating a essentially an invoice that you can be using, that you might be using perhaps if you were doing some kind of a business application in which you were doing some work as your own independent contractor, and you wanted to be able to create your own custom invoice that you'd be able to give to a client either before or after you've performed the services rendered, and it would be essentially a bill that gives a total amount due in the lower right hand corner down here. One of the advantages that comes from being able to do this using a spreadsheet is that you can, if it turns out you've put in some additional hours training than what you originally thought, or you put in some additional support hours, or if these have changed, then you can just make the changes here. And if you set up the spreadsheet correctly, that it should be able to recalculate the subtotals and the totals at the bottom here accordingly, and so you won't have to retype any additional information here. So the goal here is to be able to set this up so that it formats things very, very nicely, using a whole set of colors and fonts and things like that, make it look really cool, but also for it to have some functionality where it automates a lot of your mathematical calculations in a way that makes things, you know, very convenient for you. So you're going to be putting together here for project one. Your assignment is to simply replicate in Google Sheets the invoice document that I'm showing here that's entitled Google Sheets Consulting Invoice. This means replicating fonts, font sizes, lines, and colors. So you'll notice there are lines in here, there are colors in different styles of fonts, different sizes of fonts. You'll be able to put your name here where it says your name here. There's a logo that I've provided for you. That's that you can place up here just as a random logo for yourself here that is provided. And so yes, you just like in Google Docs, you can paste images into Google Sheets as well, and so you'll be doing that here as an example. Insert your name where appropriate. The subtotal amount for training should update based upon changes in training hours or training rate, so any change here or here should be reflected in here. The subtotal amount for support should update based upon changes in support hours or the rate of charge here for support. That should update that as well. So, and then lastly, the total at the bottom should update. If anything changes here, then that should change the total amount due down here. So this is the kind of, and I didn't really show this very well because my picture here is blocking it out, but total amount due in the lower right hand here should update based upon changes here to either one of these subtotals to the right. And what you'll be turning in really is just a link to this spreadsheet. And make sure that it's a link that I can get to. I know there's sometimes some issues with greeleyschools.org versus ames.edu, but we'll go through the procedure here for making sure that whatever you send to me, I'll be able to open up so that I can give you a grade. All right, so let me first of all set this up here so we can start from scratch. I've just opened up a Google page here, and no doubt you've got some experience working with Google Docs, the way that you've written all of your papers for other classes. Google Sheets is just another app that's available in the entire suite of Google Drive products here. So Google Sheets, if we go into this, we can create a new blank sheet. I just clicked on the blank sheet there, and it opens up this nice blank page. It's got a title up here that will be able to you'll be able to put something in. You'll also be able to share it, and we'll talk about that in just a moment here. For the title of your spreadsheet, just say My Statistical Tools. Maybe put your name after it or something. You can do that. And down here, where it says Sheet 1, turns out you can actually have multiple sheets with this here. You'll be able to, it's kind of like having multiple tabs on something, where you'll be able to show multiple overlapping sheets of information here. But the one that we're creating here, you can change from having a title of Sheet 1 to having Example Invoice. I just double clicked on Sheet 1 here, and I'm just going to change this title here to Example Invoice. I'm going to hit enter, and that changes that title to Example Invoice down here. So My Statistical Tools up here, Example Invoice down here. And now I'm going to make it so that it can be shared with anybody. So if I click on sharing up here, here I've got this thing that can be seen by me and me only right here. But let's make it so that we can share it with everybody here. Let's click on share with ames.edu, even though in just a moment, let's see if we can make it so that we can share it with everybody. See where it says ames.edu here. Maybe it says Greeley Schools for you. If you click on this down arrow here, you'll see that you've got 3 different options available to you. What you want to do is choose where it says anyone with the link. Anyone with the link here. And that creates a link up here that allows for you to be able to share this with anybody. This is the link that you will copy and then paste into your submission on D2L. That will when you've done with this. So I'll show you exactly how to do that in just a moment here. And by the way, you'll want to change this from viewer to editor. So anyone with the link and editor, that's the link that you'll want to send me, because I want it. I'll have to test your sheets eventually by pasting some data in them, and that will require me to have editing access into it. So anyone with the link editor, you'll want to copy that link eventually and send that to me, but not yet. All right, so let's talk about what a spreadsheet really is. And as you can see, it's ultimately just a set of boxes, and I can click on any one of these boxes. I can also use my arrow keys to move around the series of boxes like this. And so really all that this is you can think of it as a Google Doc, but with a set of boxes that we call cells. And I can type something in this cell, and I can click over here and type something into this cell and type something into this cell. But as you can see, having something as rows and columns makes it supremely adapted to being able to show tables of information in rows and columns. And since statistical data comes in columns of information, this is the kind of forum in which we would want to be using this. But let me first off hit the delete key here, click here, hit the delete key here, and click here and hit the delete key here, so that we can have that available to us here. Let's first of all take a look at what we've got here, and let's see if we can first of all focus on this box down here, this top one here. We'll get to the very, very top here in just a moment, but this top box here, it looks like, how many rows do we have? We really want to allow for a row for all of these colors up here, so let's allow for that to be 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows, and 5 rows. One of the things that I didn't mention is that you can change the width of the columns like this. And you can also change the height of the rows, especially when you want to accommodate a larger font or something like that. Okay, so let's just count rows here and figure out where to put the first set of information we're going to have for this. one row for this, one row for this, one row for this, one row for this, one row for the space in between these two sections here. So that's 5 rows so far. And then this area is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows high, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows, 8 columns rather, wide. And so let's do that. First of all, we're 5 rows down. Okay, so this is where we're going to start, and it's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows in size here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in this first cell, and then I'm going to drag my mouse so that I'm selecting not just one cell, but a selection of cells, a series of cells that will form some kind of a rectangle. You can see that if I move my mouse all around here, there's a different selected portion of the spreadsheet that I'm able to, well, select. And so let me make this so that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 columns wide, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows high. And I just let go of the mouse button there. So I've now selected a rectangle that has those dimensions. If I go up here, this allows me to, you'll see that this allows me to insert a series of lines. You can also do that using the controls that exist up here. We can change the borders that exist on these cells here. And so what I want to do is to create a border that is around that selected set of cells. So if I click here, that allows me to create that border. Now that doesn't look like it's a strong enough border for what I'm seeing here. So let me click on this. That allows me to change the color of this. That's not really what I'm looking for. Here's where I can choose something that's thicker. So I'll choose that, and then I'm going to click on this again. As you can see now, it creates something that's significantly thicker than that. Okay, so now let's see what we can do here. Below this, we're going to skip a row, and then we're going to have this title here that spans the same number of columns, but a single row. So we'll do this here now, and I'm just clicking here, and I'm going to drag, this time making another rectangle that only is 1 row in height, but it's still 8 columns in width. I'm going to let go of my mouse button. I'm going to do the same thing I did before here, where I'm creating that rectangle around this here. Then let's go down to, let's see, how far down do we want to go here? This box is enormous. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. All right, so that's 24 rows in size. Still 8 columns wide. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I think that's 24 there. So that's 24, and I'm going to move this to the right here and let go. All right, let's outline that. Okay. And I can tell that down here I'm going to have my total placed. You can see my total is going to be down there. That's going to be 1,500. So let me outline that real quick. Let me also, for the place where it says total amount due, that looks like it spans 2 separate columns, but it's just 1 row in height. So let me create a rectangle with those dimensions and do the same thing there. Okay, and now a couple of other things. Up here in the upper left, this is clearly another box that contains this image here that is 2 wide, and then they're hefty, but 1, 2, 3, 4, only 4 columns in size. So there's that. So I'm making the space available for that image. Let me do the same thing here for the title of the company. See, so that's going to be where we put Google Sheets Consulting, and then we have to do the same thing for founder and the name invoice, the word invoice. Okay, so we've got those things put in here. Let's start to type some information here. This is, let me see if I can do this and pull this over so that that's visible there. You can see across the top here it starts with Google Sheets Consulting LLC. So Google Sheets Consulting LLC. And underneath we have founder. And let's just put in a name here, Fuzzy Thurston. And then down here, we're going to talk about how we're going to handle the word invoice here in just a moment, because you can see it has to be centered across this entire range here. So we'll have to do something special in order to do that. You can see that once we've typed something in here, we have these same ways in which we can change fonts. We can change font size. We can make things boldface. And we can also change the actual font here. And it looks like, what are we looking at here? This looks like it might be Garamond. That sure looks close. That's too big. Okay, so 24 there. This looks also boldface. Looks like it's also the same font. That was Georgia again. And let's see, would it be 24? No, that's too big. It's noticeably smaller than the top part here. Okay, so let's talk about how we handle the word invoice here. Now, the word invoice, in order to create this where we are centering across multiple cells here going in a row like this, we have to merge these cells together into one. And yes, you can do that. So what I'm doing now is I'm clicking on one cell and I'm going to click and drag across all of them here in an effort to select all of them. And once I've got those selected, I'm going to go up to Format and choose Merge Cells. And under Merge Cells, you can see there's an option here to just merge all. And what I've got here now is just, if I'm moving around, this is all one cell, spanning across all of those columns here. Okay, and if I go above it, you can see whenever I hit this row in this section here, it's going to treat that just as one cell. Okay, so now when I type in the word invoice, okay, and I want to center it, it's going to center it not in just one of those small cells, but in this large cell that spans all of those columns. And this looks like it's really big here. It looks like it's, first of all, it's Georgia again, and this would be something like this. And now let's center this so that it's sitting right in the middle there. That looks pretty good. All right, and so let's do similar things here with invoice number and date. And one thing I'm noticing, that should have a colon at the end of it. A space in between them. So these are right justified, so they're butting up to the right side of the cell, not butting up to the left side of the cell. So let's select both of these and not only boldface them, but also indicate here that we are going to right justify those. So you can see now those are lining up in the same way that we had before here. And you can name this invoice anything that you want to. Oftentimes invoices are named in such a way that you start with the year and then you sort of increment them up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'll just say something like that. 2022 is our current year. And let's see, our current date is 1/9/2022. And that's the current date here. Now notice these are bold-faced, and they're also colored blue. So it's boldface. Looks like it's also perhaps that font. Hard to tell. That works. That looks good. But let's also make it so that these are colored blue. And so this tool up here indicates text color. And here, if we click on this, we can change their text color to, in this case, blue. That doesn't look right. I'm partially colorblind, so I hope I get this right. There we go. Let's also make sure these are bold-faced and change them to what I think is the correct font there. We also can do the same thing over here for client info. That's in all caps. Okay, again, boldface. Georgia. Looks all right. And here's your client that you're working with, Christopher Hemsworth. Greeley Country Club, 2500 10th Street, Greeley, Colorado, 806631. And we've got this in sort of a fun font color here as well. I am so bad with colors. I'm sure that that's wrong. That is wrong. We'll see if that's right after I boldface it here. And then clearly this is a different font. Let's see if we can recognize the font that it is. Is it Brie Serif? It sure is. Let's make it a little bit bigger here. So this might be the place where you'd put your client's name. And then lastly down here, let's make this title here description. And over here, this is whoops. Delete. Subtotal. And let's make sure that's right justified, as it is over here. Let's make that boldface. Looks like, again, it's Georgia. Same thing here, boldface and Georgia. Let's see, now down here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 4, 1 over. And we call it consultant. And then 3 columns over, we have hourly rate. And so again, your name gets put here, Fuzzy Thurston. Hourly rate's $50. And so then down here we have some other things to type in. Let's see, hours, rate, and there's 2 things going on. There's training and there's support. And there's a certain number of hours of training, that's 25. A certain number of hours of support, that's 5. And they have different rates here. $50 and $50. Okay. Now, one of the things that is mentioned in the objectives for this is that we should be updating the subtotals based upon any changes that we see here. Well, how is this calculated based upon what we have here? Well, this, as you might be able to discern, is equal to the number of hours here times the rate here. So this should be equal to this times this. With that in mind, what we want to do is put not a number in here, but a formula in here. And the way that you do that in not only in Google Sheets but also Excel is to start what you're typing in here with an equal sign. So make sure you start with an equal sign. And we're going to be indicating what things get multiplied together in order to make what we see in this cell here. So the easiest way to do it is to click on a cell, and so that indicates that we have selected this cell here, and it's now part of this formula. I will then hit the star key, which is the Shift 8 key. That creates a little asterisk, and that's the mathematical programming symbol for multiplication. So it's this times what? It's this times that. So I'm going to click on this cell here, and I will now hit Enter. And notice it places 1250 in here. It's done the multiplication for you. And if I were to change this to 26 hours, it would automatically change that. See, so that's the power of this here. Let me change it back to 1250. So here it's showing you a number, but what's actually stored in this cell is shown up here at the top. This is where the formula resides here. Now, what does this mean, D22 star E22? Well, D22 that's the coordinates for this cell here. This cell is in column D, and it's in row 22. So this is cell D22. This one right here, this one is E22. So it's in column E, and it's in row 22. So the formula here is to take whatever is in D22 and multiply it by whatever is in E22. And we get what we have here. All right, so we can do the same thing down here by once again starting with the equal sign. That's important. We start with equals, and then it's actually suggesting, it's guessing for you. Are you wanting to do the same thing here and here? And yeah, sometimes you can just click on that suggestion here, but I want us to go through the process again, this time typing it in as a formula so that we'll be able to see really how this is done. So again, this first cell here is D23. So I'm going to type in D23, and you'll notice it is very, very helpful. And it says, you mean this cell? Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to hit the star again for multiplication, and I'm going to type E23. And again, it's trying to be helpful and to say, yeah, that's that cell right there. So just confirming that that's the case, I'm going to hit Enter, and it does the multiplication here for me again. Lastly, down here, I'm going to hit, let me first of all type total amount due. And you might be wondering why I'm doing that here when it clearly spans these two cells here. I'm thinking that if I right justify this and make it boldface, maybe a little bigger, maybe not that big, but you can see now it spans those two columns pretty well there. It replicates what we have going down there. Oh, that should also be Georgia. See, that looks pretty good. So what are we going to put in here? This is the sum of what we have here. And so, in fact, if you wanted to make it so that you could add a bunch of different charges in this area here that perhaps would have a bunch of different subtotals in here, we could use a function to do this. We can also just say this function down here is equals, you can probably guess what this would be, this plus this. If I hit Enter, I get the right answer. Okay, so once again, I just put in a formula here that added those two cells together, I-22 and I-23. I could have typed that in, or I can select it to guide the tool here towards doing that. Here's something else that I can also do, and this will make it a little bit more expandable. I'm going to click on this formula, select it, and just hit the backspace to erase it, is I can make it so that it adds up everything in this column, in this area here. And here's how this would be here. If I hit the equals once again, I can use a formula called sum, S-U-M, and I'll hit the left parentheses here, and you'll actually see that it's trying to give you some help here when it comes to describing how you would enter in a range of information for this. And so the way that this would work is that we can put in a range of data here as it's described. Here's one way to do it. A2 colon A100, that's going to be everything that's in the A column from row 2 down to row 100. So think of that as being like a rectangle, all of which is in the A column that goes from row 2 down to row 100. So that would be like selecting all of those and finding the sum of all of those. So I can either enter this in with a colon, but it might just be easier for me to just select this whole area here and have it fill in. Okay, and notice what it filled in here. It filled in I-15, that's up here, colon I-38, which is down here. So we defined this range in Google Sheets here according to a rectangle that has sort of a starting place and an ending place. You make sure that you end it with a right parentheses here, and we could hit enter. We'll get the exact same figure as before here. It's kind of important that this gets formatted with dollars and cents, isn't it? And so you can actually hit this button up here that says format as currency. That makes sure that that's the case here. And you know what, let's just do that with these as well here, just so that that's something that we know it should always be the case. So if somebody types in 50, it recognizes that as $50. Same thing there, and same thing there. Okay, so we also have this area in here that says thank you for your business. It's clearly in a large, somewhat unusual font. It starts in the second column here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows up. So it's going to start there and move to the right as I type it in here. So I'm going to say thank you for your business, exclamation mark. And as you can see, that bleeds over into cells to the right. That's fine. That's what this does here. So let's select that and see if we can figure out what font that is. That looks like Caveat or Pacifico. Caveat. Let's go with Caveat. Okay, so that's very, very small. Let's bolden it, and then let's make it a lot bigger here. Let's do 36. You know, that looks like the size that we need it to be. Very, very good. So you can see here there's also some formatting that you want to do in here to get this looking really, really well. Let's make it so that we have our logo sitting up here. Let me first of all make sure that I know where this logo is sitting. Here it is, Google Sheets Consulting logo. Okay, so very, very good. You'll be able to download it from the site. It's part of the. It's listed as part of the package for the project tutorial here. So here's the project as it is here. If we click on it, it takes you to as it's listed under assignments here. This is the example that's showing here. This is the PDF of what you can see here. This is the actual logo. So you can click on this and download it, and then you'll be able to paste it into your own Google spreadsheet. Okay, so let's do that here. Insert image over cells. Okay, so it says browse or drag a file here. I've got my file sitting over here, so I'm just going to drag it here. Okay, and so there it is. And let me make it a little smaller here. You can see that I can, we have these control buttons here that allows me to change the size of it, just like in when you're making a presentation. And it also looks like these columns are a little bit skinnier. So I think I'll make these a little skinnier just so that the right portion of this lines up. Oh, not so far. See, so that outlines that logo pretty nicely there. I can also work to create some colors up here. Looks like we're flanking it on the top and the bottom with some nice colors. Let me move that over here so you can see that. Green, yellow, blue, red, green, yellow, blue. Even I can see that. So these are obscured here by the logo, so let's just make these green. And for this, we have a fill color tool where we can just make these green. These we can make as yellow, and did I make this one too big? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I did. Okay, so let's demonstrate one thing that we can do here. I am looking here at column F. Now, there's stuff that bleeds into column F here, but this text is actually sitting inside this cell here, which is way over in column B. This text is actually sitting in this cell right here. So there's nothing in this invoice here that is native to column F here. This is all starting in different places. So I can actually click on this and right click and say delete column. Okay, and that pulls everything together here, but you'll notice that nothing is lost because nothing was native to that column there. And it looks like everything is situated as it should be. Very, very nice. I need to make this also yellow up here, and this as blue. Okay, let me do the same thing down here. We're actually doing this across a full row here. Okay, so this will be red. Did I do that right? Red. This will be green. This will be yellow. And this will be blue. And you can see these are designed to be pretty thin. So let me do that a little bit here, even though that might force me to change some things here too. Okay, looks like this is not meant to be very thick either. That's meant to be okay, like that. But the big question that we have here is when we print this off, is it going to take up a full page very nicely? You'll notice that this thing really takes up a full page top to bottom very, very nicely. It's formatted for that page width. So let's figure out what this looks like. If I click on the print button here, it's going to create a view here that allows for that to be seen here. So you can see here it's right now it's set incorrectly at landscape. Let me switch that to portrait. And let's see what this looks like here. Boy, this looks pretty good. It looks like it's it's not extending across too far into another page to the right. It's not extending down into another page down here. What would happen is if you had a bunch of different columns that's really, really wide, it would do pages and pages and pages to take care of the first few set of columns. Then it would jump to the right and do some more pages for those columns here. These things can take up 20 pages pretty quickly here. So the fact that this is being formatted pretty well for what you see here, turns out this looks like we're pretty close to getting this done here. So as you can see, there's a little bit of formatting that needs to take place here. That in order to finish this up, you're more than capable of doing that on your own. This needs to be formatted down here for the total so that font is correct. Usually what you're going to have in the projects that you're going to be doing from here on out is you're going to be asked to sort of employ a tasteful use of two or three or more colors and 2 or 3 or more fonts, so that what you're putting together here is something that's presentable and something that is workable from your end as well. Once we have this, we would click next, and then that would bring up a print dialog box, and you could send it to the printer. Let me cancel out of this and just make sure that this is an example invoice here. That's how that's set up here. My Statistical Tools is the title, maybe with your name following that, and make sure your sharing is public on the web with that really, really long URL that's necessary in order to keep security on that. So this is really just designed to get you comfortable using the Google Sheets utility here. We're going to be working really a lot more with these formulas as you're doing statistical calculations using these same Google Sheets formats here. But this is what you need to do in order to finish Project 1. Make sure that when you're done that you go through and you make sure that you are satisfying all the objectives here. You're submitting a link to your spreadsheet as you're putting this into the project Dropbox. All right, so hope that helps. Hope that's exactly what you need. Let me know if you have questions here, and I'll see you soon.